Hello again. So I'm making another video because I basically just figured out that my most recent relationship after the very overt narcissist seems to have been a covert narcissist. And that's not something I ever really thought about because my other one was so very overt. And then this one definitely felt the opposite of that in a whole lot of ways because she seemed like very openly insecure. And so it really didn't occur to me until throughout the relationship for sure, but definitely kind of during the breakup stage, things started to feel very similar to how they felt with my overt narcissist when we were breaking up, during the discard and everything. And then I sort of identified all these other very strong similarities that I was trying to push out of my mind because I was trying not to do the thing where you're like, everybody's a narcissist, right? So now I kind of understand more about how I really did just get drawn right back into the same thing. And so now it's my job to figure out, again, why I am kind of a target for these people and why like my sort of brand of codependency fits really well with narcissists. So with covert narcissists, they do come across as kind of insecure and self-loathing, and they will talk like they don't really deserve anything. Like they'll outright say it. And so for someone who's an empath, of course, that draws you right in, and you, I don't know, you might try to fix them or make them feel better, make them feel validated, which of course is not anyone's job in a relationship in the way that it happens with these people. And then they kind of have this internal fight because they really do still think that they're better than you, and that they don't have to follow any rules and things like that, like the overt narcissist does. But then they also kind of do feel bad in a way about having these feelings that they're better than everyone else. So it's this really complicated thing I've been reading about, which really fits with this most recent person I was with. I looked up a bunch of characteristics that covert narcissists have, and now I'm going to explain them to you in the context of my most recent person, and maybe some of you will identify with them, or you'll have some other examples to add, and then hopefully all of us in the future can kind of think back on this, and if we see any of these things happening, we can think critically about them, and hopefully not be in this situation ever again. So the first one is that a lot of covert narcissists are extremely sensitive. I didn't know this because my overt narcissist really wasn't at all. You could pretty much say anything to her and she would flip it around on you and either like make it your fault or turn it into her giving a lecture on how she was like the greatest thing ever and you were just wrong. But these covert narcissists are really sensitive, get their feelings hurt by any sort of judgment or ridicule or even perceived judgment or ridicule, which with this one happened all of the time. And like, I'm not a judgmental person. I'm really not. And these things would pop up all the time. So once she started a fight with me about how we were talking about one of her current jobs, and she said something that I didn't really understand, and so I assume I made a face that was like, huh, and I was getting ready to start to ask a question, like formulate a question about it so I could understand better, and my huh face made her lose her mind and start saying that, you know, you're not hearing me, you're judging me, and like the fact that I wouldn't acknowledge that I was judging her because I wasn't, meant that you know, you aren't hearing me and you aren't validating my feelings and you never let me exist in this relationship. Like, it was really intense things like that where she would accuse me of something, like judging her, and then I would be like, whoa, wait, no, and try to explain it away because I wasn't doing that. And then her response was, you never even let me exist. Oh, okay, I don't know what to say to that. There was also a whole lot of stuff about she would just throw out a feeling, like, I feel like you're not supporting me. Like, for example, with another work thing where she had to go away for work. I feel like you're not supporting me going on this trip or something bizarre. And I was like, well, no, I mean, I do. Like, I don't know why you think that. I don't know where this is coming from. I feel like you're not supporting me, and I feel like you're judging me. It was just more of this. And then it's like, whenever she throws out a I feel like, then she would act like it was the truth. And like, whatever happened was my motivation behind something that really, truly was not. Another thing about being very, very sensitive to criticism is she came over to my parents' house one time, and my dad, like, comments on a lot of stuff, and it's harmless. He just says very obvious things sometimes. So we came over right after having been to Dunkin' Donuts, and yeah, we had a coffee that was, like, really crazy, like, bucket size. And we were sharing it, and of course my dad said something like, whoa, that's a huge coffee, and she shut down and later admitted that she really didn't want to come back here to my parents' house ever because she had felt so judged by my dad. And it's like, whoa, who would judge you for a big coffee? Like, he loves coffee. And so here I am again trying to explain it away. Like, that's not what he was doing. I don't know where this came from because we can't fix it out here on the outside. I don't know where that came from. It came from nowhere. She also told me when we first started dating that she had stopped going to her ex's house for holidays because they were just so judgmental of her, and, you know, they were kind of elitist and just had wanted her to have a bunch more college degrees than she has. And she only has an undergrad. Okay. So in the beginning, you know, you think maybe, like, there are people who are super judgmental about that. But after having these experiences, I'm like, oh, I kind of really doubt that that was totally what was going on. She also is convinced that whenever she tells anyone that she works in customer service, that they're judging her and thinking that she is not important. Her job is not important. And she said it to me too. Like, I know that you judge me for this. I have a really strong social justice background. I would never judge anyone for the way that they make money. And not that this matters, but doing her customer service job, she makes like close to twice as much as I've ever made. So if you're talking about like value or who has the better job, I mean, it's clearly you. I would never think of judging someone for that. But again, it was like, because she feels bad about something, she's going to tell me that I'm making her feel bad. It's just not the case. There was another time too where she said something. I forget what it was. It wasn't a big deal, but it was kind of like a parental comment. And so I jokingly said, thanks, Dad. Because people say that sometimes, right? It was a joke. Clearly. Nope. She lost her mind again and said that she didn't want to be compared to my dad. And, like, I needed to apologize right away. And we were on a road trip, and it ruined, like, 6 hours of road trip because she was, like, so hurt by this or whatever. And it doesn't matter what I say, again, no matter what, like, caring sentences come out of my mouth, it doesn't change the fact that she was hurt. And then I, in my shock that she is hurt, should be validating the fact that she feels this way and that I shouldn't have said that. And, like, that was way too much for me to have to do. I also once tried to explain this, like, long string of texts, a group text for my coworkers, because I thought it was really funny, and I was trying to tell her about it, and she didn't really get it, and I was like, never mind, it's not a big deal, like, I guess you had to be there. Apparently that was a sentence that she stopped texting me for hours. This was a text conversation, because that was a trigger for her, because sometimes her dad would say that to her when she was little. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that one has a little more validity than other things, but, like, just explain it to me, right? And then don't make me feel bad. Like, there's no way I could have guessed that that was going to hurt you, so don't act like I did it on purpose, right? And that's kind of there's that guilt thing, and everything is your fault, that tends to come up with narcissists. There was also a lot of talk of triggers, which is interesting, right? Because I have triggers from being with my first narcissist. And so we talked about them, I thought, in a good way in the beginning, and she even had, like, a word that she said, oh, we could just use that word if one or the other of us, like, sets off a trigger. And I thought, oh, wow, you're being really self-aware. This is great. I would like to use that for sure. But then she would use trigger to really just stop a conversation that she didn't want to have. Like, because it made her uncomfortable, or because maybe something was her fault. or because it brought up like a memory from a past relationship that she didn't love, but it wasn't anything that was done to her. Like, one of them that she called a trigger was, I was not allowed to talk about my current job situation in a negative way. Well, I was in an internship that I thought I was going to really, really love, and then it turned out to be like pretty heartbreaking. And so I would talk about it in an honest way like that. Nope. She said that it was a trigger because her ex had been miserable in her job for a long time. And it made her a miserable person, right? Maybe not like fully paying attention to you is what you mean, I'm guessing. Made her a miserable person, and she just couldn't handle people being negative about anything. That just means that I can't be myself. Like, I don't think I'm particularly negative, but I'm definitely not overly positive. Like, I consider myself a realist. And I mean, especially talking about an experience that I'm having at work, I'm going to tell you what it is, because if you're my person, I need to speak honestly about what's going on. And that started multiple, like, huge fights, and, you know, the strings of, like, 50 texts in a row where, like, you can't get a word in edgewise because everything is being flooded at you, and you knew that I didn't want you to talk about things in this way, and you made this about you when really this is about my feelings. That was a big one. You're making it about you. We were talking about me and my job. I'm not going to stop doing that because you had a feeling that, I'm sorry, is pretty irrelevant to this situation. And another point would be, if your ex was having a super hard time in her job, and that's hard for you to think about because that was a lot of the reason that you broke up, why weren't you supporting her? Right? Like, that's what partners do. They were together for years, and just because someone's having like a bumpy time at work, I don't think that you can say, oh, you're a miserable person, I'm gonna leave. I mean, maybe in certain situations, but like, no, didn't sound right. And then it was funny because after she asked me all of these things about narcissism, like, she really wanted to know, which maybe should have been some kind of a clue, but I told her a lot about my past, and then she just got really interested in what would set me off, but in a way that she could later use against me, and ended up telling me that I was like a lot, right? Even though I think I've kept a lot of things like pretty well in check, and I can explain them when I'm having a reaction. But yeah, it was just interesting that she wanted to know so much about that. So another thing is, these narcissists, these covert narcissists, are very self-absorbed and obsessed with their own personal affairs. Definitely that in so many ways. Some little examples are, like, if she was going away on a business trip, she would invite me over because she kind of felt like she had to, but then she wouldn't get anything ready for the trip in advance, so I would just kind of be sitting there while she was like running around the apartment and doing laundry and getting stuff ready for the dog, and she hadn't like packed it all, and she'd have the TV on and it was all over the place, I couldn't offer any help because she didn't like trust me to do anything correctly, because she's like very much of a control freak about a lot of stuff like that, like even packing. So I did what I could to help, but it was another kind of like, you don't even realize that I'm sitting here trying to spend some quality time with you before you leave, because like I thought that was the thing, and I know you had time last night, but she just like will put her own whatever she needs to do in that moment way before whatever's going on with you. Also, we took a trip together to California. It was one of her business trips, and while we were over there, and this is all through text, she was at work and she texted, oh, one of my bosses just had a talk with me about getting on this like management track. And I was like, ooh, you've mentioned that before, but doesn't that mean that you'd have to be in California to do this job? And she said, well, let's not talk about location. That's a huge one. What do you mean let's not talk about location? So just like she gets all wrapped up in thinking about like what she might want. Like, oh, cool, I could be a manager. We live in Chicago. So that was kind of like a panicky moment for me. I was like, well, you're considering this? We haven't talked about this. What's going on? And later that got thrown back at me, because she was like, well, you should have known that I wouldn't take a job like that without talking to you about it. And if I took it, like, I would have asked you to move out here with me. So self-absorbed. We hadn't been together very long, first of all. So of course I'm going to assume that you would just take this and we wouldn't be together anymore. Second of all, she knows I need to be in Chicago right now. Like, I'm looking at jobs here. I'm here to help my parents out. There's just no way. And I used to live in California, and I decided I was done with it. So why would I go to California with someone I haven't been dating that long? And like that, just, oh, you've decided that. Of course, you've got me roped in enough that I'm just going to move. She also, while we were on the business trip that she invited me to, uninvited me from an event that she had invited me to like 3 weeks before, because she was being awful, and so like we weren't really getting along the greatest. And so at lunchtime, the day of this event that was right after work, she says something really cold like, I've just decided that I need to go to this by myself. I just don't want to deal with this with my friends. I need to spend time with my friends. And mind you, this is after she'd been out there without me for a whole week, spending time with friends and doing whatever. So I don't understand why you need one more night. It seemed like just an intentional kind of put me in my place kind of a move. But even if it wasn't, how are you so self-absorbed that you know I don't have any plans tonight? Am I going to sit in the hotel room? And yeah, that was what she expected me to do. But why do you always have to have plans just because I have plans, was always her thing. Well, I don't, but I'm in a state that's not mine. I don't have anyone here I can hang out with right now. Like, what's going on? Also, just weird things like, she planned to go to California for 2 weeks, in December, so she's probably still gonna do it, but I won't know. She planned to be out there for 2 weeks and then go right from California to Hawaii for the holidays, and didn't tell me about it. Like, who does that? A whole month I'm not gonna see you? And you don't talk to me about it? You just, like, throw it out there. Because there really wasn't a concept that, like, in her mind, I should have been like, that's so cool for you. Have a great time? What? I don't know. And she even went so far as to tell me she's so self-absorbed that, so another thing that I was putting up with while she was in California before me is I was supposed to go for the whole trip, but she decided that she needed to help her most recent ex move out of the place where they had been living together in Oakland. I was definitely not thrilled. And then she asked for even more days without me out there because she said she was just going to be emotionally exhausted after this thing. So part of me, knowing that she is so sensitive, was like, maybe that's kind of true. That she'll be like kind of overwhelmed and she gets like really easily stressed out and unorganized. And she had a lot of work stuff to do in the evenings. So I was trying to be understanding, but basically towards the end of the trip, when I finally got out there, we were having a conversation about how we hadn't been in touch very much. Our communication had been awful before I showed up there. And she had been so distant, had been pushing me away and doing these little fights that really feel intentional. Like, there's no reason for you to get mad at me about, like, what your dog sitter did. Like, that happened as well. And a million other little things that just started huge fights. And so she went so far as to tell me that all of this was my fault because I should have known how stressed out she was. I should have known that she had nothing to give me, but that it was going to be okay afterwards. And she had said that before she left, too. She tried to have, like, this, I don't know, like a moment before she left where she, like, said that she loved me or whatever, and I was just supposed to focus on that for an entire week. And just know that while she's spending 7.5 hours with her ex alone in their old house and doing, like, God knows what else in California, I should have just been like, oh, she said she loved me. It's fine, right? Just so in her own little world. It was, like, crazy. And we did break up while we were out there, and I got told later, after the breakup, because of course there was still talking after that, that I also should have known that what she said was the opposite of what she had meant. because she admitted, I don't even know if this is true, she claims to have blacked out while we were talking because she was so stressed. So she said some things and was like, well, you should have known that that was the complete opposite of what I meant. Like, things like that. It's really, really wild. Another characteristic is apparently covert narcissists have a big tendency for depression. I thought she just had, like, a chemical imbalance, and maybe she does, but she's not taking any medicine for it because she's an alcoholic, and so she doesn't want to have any substances around her. She hasn't drank for 3 years, so I thought all of this stuff was kind of more under control, but it's really not. So she definitely has major depressive tendencies, so much so that we had conversations about, like, how this is going to come up. She's tried to commit suicide before. She very easily just plummets into, like, a whole day. She said that she could listen to one song that is kind of sad and just be, like, way down here the whole day, and really easily falls back into this, like, I don't deserve to be alive kind of a thing. And so at first, when I was like, oh my God, I really, like, want to see a future with this person, how am I going to handle that? It was really scary. So I don't know. Now it kind of makes sense with the rest of the context. And I also sort of think that she started to show these depressive tendencies when things happened, like she completely dropped the barrier between her and her ex that she was supposed to have up, the one that she went to move. And I think that that happened because I stopped being enough supply. I feel like that could be a good guess. You know, I started kind of calling her out on some things, and she's a really difficult person to be in a relationship with, of course. So every time I was like, any sort of constructive criticism, again, she's so sensitive to it. I even suggested, like, hey, in an argument, you know, it's not great when you throw out the you always and you. So, like, maybe you could just tell me how you feel about it or something instead. Like, that's even how I phrased it. There was just a big blow up. So she went right back to the ex, and her version of it is, well, I was just so homesick for California, and she is the last person I saw as my home, kind of, like, in a way, that feeling, and she's just so easy to talk to, and she understands me, right? So you're going to go right back to your ex for validation, and I'm supposed to think it's okay because it's this, like, emotional support that you need so that you don't get depressed and you don't drink. Pretty sure when you're in a relationship with someone, though, just because you're an alcoholic, you don't get to just decide unilaterally at any moment what you need to do and who you get to talk to and which promises you get to break, just so that you don't drink. So that was a lot of that. Another characteristic of covert narcissists is a very low emotional IQ. So as I've mentioned, thinking that it was okay to go move this ex, telling me that she was going to do it, not having a conversation, not maybe inviting me over or asking if I wanted to help so I could, like, see the situation and know that you're actually over it like you're saying you are. Even just seeing me the following day or, like, that night to be like, yay, it's over. No, none of that came to her mind at all. She just had to do whatever she was going to do, and I should have understood. I should have supported her through it. There's also this kind of fake morality that I've read about with covert narcissists, where they try to come across as, like, always being, you know, always doing really moral things and always being, like, the helper. And of course, just like overt ones, their image in front of other people is just incredibly important. And so she definitely has that one going on, and she consistently says, I'm a good person, like, almost every day when something happens. Or, like, if you think that I would do that, then you just don't know me. You don't understand me, and you never will. But you just did this shitty thing. And then her response would be, well, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Yeah. all of this, like, I should have understood her feelings. I should have just supported her through the ex. Really interesting emotional ideas there. We were also supposed to go to a wedding while we were out in California together over the weekend, and basically she broke up with me in our hotel room for those things I was just saying. You'll never understand me because how could you think that I would do X, Y, and Z that you definitely did. Broke up with me in this hotel room when I had nowhere else to stay, and I didn't have a way to get home because we were in the Bay Area, and then we were going to go to this wedding together in Santa Barbara, and then we were going to fly out of LA. So I didn't have a way to get to LA for my flight. It was just so much like, you're so self-absorbed that you think you need to break up right this instant, and so you just say it. Anyway, and then at one point, right before I walked out of the hotel room, like, fuck this, she said, well, you can come to the wedding as long as you know that we need to be broken up on Monday. Who does that? And of course, later she tried to say, well, you should have understood that, you know, that was something that I did want to do with you, and like maybe we could have fixed things over the weekend. But then you tell me that you want to fix things, right? This is what people do. You can't just think that like I can shut off all of my feelings for the weekend and just like have a great time knowing that like you're not even going to be in my life anymore after we take our flight home on Monday. What is that? So those things were like, man, I don't know what world you're living in. And then of course, like any narcissist, another characteristic is the lack of empathy. So that day when she was out in California helping her ex move, I had a terrible day. I mean, this was like so intensely triggering for me because my overt narcissist had done the exact same pattern. Had like really roped me in, of course, lots of love bombing, like thought things were great. Then you put all of her emotional energy towards someone else, just like this person did. So I already felt really abandoned. And then you're going to go spend the day with her and tell me that I need to support you through it. So I just had one of those like really sick feeling days where I was trying to find distractions that weren't working at all. And I was just so anxious and like dissociated all day. And then finally in the evening, she called me and she was on her way to an AA meeting where she was going to speak. So she was like, oh, yay, you know, the move is done and I'm going to speak at this meeting, blah, blah, blah. And I was crying just kind of out of like relief that it was finally done, because at that point she still had me convinced that like if we could just get through that part, then we'd be okay and she could be done with this ex, which is still not the case to this day. But I was crying on the phone and she just was like, I don't know like what your problem is, but was just completely cheerful and was like, all right, well, I'll talk to you later. It's like, whoa, you don't realize any of this. And after knowing about my ex and how everything happened with her, you really don't understand how this would be like really triggering. She also wanted me to stick around after we broke up and just deal with the fact that she's sorting things out with her ex, and I should be fine with it since we're broken up. Again, the narcissist like hanging on to you and like, maybe we could still just have sex and whatever. And like for some reason I really hadn't identified her as a narcissist, so I thought that she was still just like in this really troubled state, and whatever was confusing about her and her ex really was stemming from like a lot of self-loathing and depression and like homesickness and whatever else. So I was like kind of trying to be understanding. So one night I did agree to pick her up from the airport, which was so stupid. It's an hour drive round trip, but I was trying to be nice. And she thought it was okay to text that ex who had basically obliterated our relationship in my car. So like she had the navigation on and like I saw that ex pop up and then I saw her texting her. It's just wild. This was also after, so I was on my way to the airport, and then her flight actually got in early. So I was halfway there, and she was like, okay, I'm out. And I was like, wait, what? So I called her, and I was like, oh, man, I'm not quite there yet. You're, like, super early, but, like, I'll be there soon. And she got mad at me that I wasn't fast enough to make the decision about whether or not I was still going to come get her or if she should just get on the train. Because she was like, well, should I just take the train? What, like, what's going on? And, of course, that would have been, like, so that I can talk to my ex on the train, right? Never anything concerned about how I'm going out of my way. Just, like, I know that I'm going to talk to her because I talk to her every fucking second of the day. So anyway, yeah, just despite the fact that I had gone out of my way, thought that it was fine to text her, and her argument is always, well, we're not together. Okay, but, like, let's say that your best friend breaks up with someone, so they're not together. Does that mean that the very next day you're gonna go sleep with your best friend's now ex because they're not together, so it's fine? Like, people still have feelings about the ways that they got hurt in relationships. You still need to be a respectful human in the car of the person doing you a huge favor, right? Like, could she not have waited 20 minutes to hear back from you? No? Okay. You're still going to prioritize this person right in front of me. Of course, another characteristic would be the impersonal and difficult relationships. The two people she talks to the absolute most are two exes. One of them really does seem to just be an ex, but of course, like, provides, some sort of supply. And then the other one is this most recent one, of course. They're also, another characteristic is being extremely susceptible to stress. As I said, if she's a little bit stressed, she will just refuse to handle any logistics of her life or make any plans, or even, like, talk about things that might be a plan. Like, at one point we were having a hard time and I was trying to just make something to look forward to. So I was like, oh, we could go camping. You've been talking about that. And she just, like, shut down the conversation, like, stopped texting me because she was like, I just can't think about plans right now. I'm like, woo. And this is because she was about to go to California and see this ex and whatever. Again, during the awful breakup talk in the hotel, she would always say that I was twisting her words and I didn't understand her. That's another huge one. I'm twisting your words. She then, again, like, said that she blacked out, and she does get this glazed over look that happens, and then you're like, whoa, you're not there. Or she'll start to shake, and she'll be like, I'm about to freak out, like, I'm about to freak out, and I can't let myself get angry because then it's going to be so bad, which is, like, not something you should say to me because of the most recent narcissist, but someone else before that hit me, like, physically hit me. And so what is that a threat? Like, why would you say that? But yeah, anyway, she just get so stressed. She was like not a person. And then later would just gaslight me so hard about what happened. And even at one point said, it doesn't matter what you say you remember, I'm never going to believe you. Like, that's never going to be the story in my mind. And it's crazy because little does she know my narcissist before her was so crazy that I preemptively turned on my voice recorder on my phone before I walked into the hotel room that night that I thought we were probably going to break up. So I know what she said. And she just tried to convince me of 1,000 other things. Another characteristic are the delusions of grandiosity. I was doing an internship this summer with the WNBA, and she was just infuriated by it because she had played water polo in college, and apparently it does sound like she was really good, and she likes to try to balance out the, like, trying to be sort of humble and then trying to say, like, I'm the best thing that ever came out of that water polo program. And, if there had been the chance to play professionally, like, I would have been the best. And so she, like, hates watching the WNBA because their sport has a professional league and water polo doesn't. And she is so tied to, like, getting so much validation from the fact that she's good at that she just hates to see anybody else doing anything like that. So she feels like she got ripped off. And she could not handle herself when I would get to be around the players. Like specifically one of them. And basically she would say, well, those are the only people that I can see you wanting to be with more than me. Like, those are the only people that made her insecure. But otherwise, she just knew that she, was the greatest. And yeah, there are lots of other delusions, I think, where, again, kind of with the hating her customer service job, like, she just feels like she deserves so much better than this in life. And so she kind of can't comprehend how she's having to do a job that, like, a normal person would have to do. Another characteristic is this conspicuously vulnerable part, which is really what I think kind of pulled me in. But, like, lots of sob stories about exes and about childhood and about coworkers. And again, like, maybe some of it's true, and maybe some of her childhood is why all of this is happening, right? Probably. But yeah, everything was someone else's fault, which is why it was so confusing, because I had heard so many terrible stories about the ex, and then suddenly you're running right back to this person who you said was the worst and caused all of your problems. Like, what is this? There are also constant put downs, for constantly, I don't even know why you like me. I don't know why you're attracted to me. No one's attracted to me. And, like, you think that I'm this confident person, but, like, I'm not, which she would say to me all the time. And, like, maybe I just don't deserve to exist. A lot of that stuff. So what do you say? In the beginning, you're like, oh, man, I should try to validate you in some way. Again, because, like, you're my person. What do you mean you don't know why I would like you? I mean, that's a big problem, but it was kind of always put in a way that was like, now it's your job to tell me, instead of like, I need to work on the fact that I hate myself. So, a lot of that. And then another characteristic is kind of wanting to be the rescuer and the good as gold person. And so, like I was saying countless times, she'd say, I'm a good person. Everyone thinks so, except for you, right? And then whenever I would describe anything she had done that wasn't great, again, it would be that's just not who I am, you don't know me, and we should just break up if that's who you think that I am. So much projecting is another characteristic. So much projecting. She would say, you run away from arguments when they're not going your way. Well, they never go my way because you do this crazy talking in circles, on purpose to confuse everything. So there's no way it can go my way. But actually, she's the one who will just stop texting for hours if she's not getting exactly what she wants. Or if she has a trigger, which just means I don't want to talk about this because I'm kind of in the wrong. And she actually physically walked away from me at a street fair that we went to together, because it was the day when she just out of nowhere told me that I actually wasn't allowed to come to California for a whole week after I was scheduled to go with her, because she was going to do all this X stuff and then needed to see her friends. And I was like, okay, ouch, like kind of trying to talk about my feelings about it. And then she goes, you just made this about you and all of this, why would she ever have to listen to my feelings? Because then she'd have to be accountable for something. So she just stormed away. And I didn't hear from her for hours. And then, of course, you get the apology that's like, sorry, I shouldn't have done that. But it's because you were being awful, right? It's because you were making that discussion about you, and you weren't supporting me. So, also, I don't know, there was a lot of emotionally abusive stuff going on, that really super wasn't great, that she just kind of was always trying to get away with. And there was an insane amount of projection about me and my most recent narcissist, because I had said, well, we talked about it extensively. She asked for articles to read and about like my triggers and stuff. So at one point she said something awful. I can't even remember what it was. And I was like, what? And she said something like, well, it seems like you still have a whole lot of feelings about that ex. No, I don't. I actually, honestly do not. But you're not understanding trauma in this situation. These are not feelings about my ex the way that you apparently have them, or actually probably don't because you're a narcissist. But just a lot of like, oh, you seem to still be caught up in this thing. Oh, when we started dating, neither of us should have been dating because we weren't like whole people, bringing our whole selves to the relationship. No, I'm really going to need for you to speak for yourself on that one because I wasn't with anyone for quite a while after the other narcissist. I was good to go. And now I'm like a little messed up again because of you. But don't tell me that I'm the one, still caught up in something else. Another characteristic is extreme anger. So, like I was saying, she will like start shaking, she will yell, she will slam doors. And there's no way in hell I would be allowed to do that. If I started doing that, she would tell me that I was scary. Oh, here's a really good one. Well, she would do the thing that a lot of narcissists do where they say really inflammatory things. And so then you react appropriately with anger. Just any sort of like, wait, what? Or like, why do you think you can say that to me? And then suddenly it's important that you keep your voice down because it's her apartment building or because it's the hotel room, right? So definitely a lot of that would happen. But one thing that really blew me away was the night when she was texting her ex in my car. She also decided, well, I had absolutely had it, obviously, and we weren't even together. So, after she texted, we rode home the rest of the way silently. I parked the car. I got out. She wouldn't get out of my car. And I was like, okay, let's go. I'm not kidding. I don't have anything else to say to you, and I need you to get out of my car. Like, that was the tone that I had, which I never took with her before because she would have been so sensitive to it. Like, you have to talk to her like you're a kindergarten teacher. But I was just done. I didn't care what she thought. I didn't care how she reacted. I was done. And she wouldn't get out, so I walked to the other side of my car, and I opened the door to where her bags were, and I was like, okay, I'm going to help you carry these in. Like, I'm going in. Let's go. And then got up to her apartment, left my stuff, and said, I don't have anything else to say to you, and I left. And then, of course, she told me that the way that I left was hurtful, right? But the real kicker was that the following day, after, like, I obviously hate your guts, okay? Then she texted me, oh, I'm speaking at an AA meeting, and I just thought I would tell you because, like, while we were together, she said that I could be invited to one of these things. No, there's no need to tell me now. Like, don't try to look like the good person. Like, now you're going to be honest or, like, follow through with what you said you would do because you're telling me about this speaking thing that you're doing. And then she goes, so you can still come if you want to, but I don't think we should see each other in the meeting. Why? Oh, because I'm not ready to have you in my safe space yet because you really scared me last night. So you're going to use, like, the type of trauma that I actually have experienced against me and say that I was, like, the perpetrator, basically, just because of the tone that I used and because I took your stuff out of my car when you refused to leave it. That one really got me. Another characteristic is the just being generally dysfunctional. Again, can't handle any logistics, like won't make plans. She also can't figure out how to eat. She can't feed herself. And part of that, she'll tell you, oh, well, while I was drinking all the time, I just never ate anything, and so I kind of never, like, got used to that. So this ex that she got super codependent with apparently would just feed her whenever that needed to happen. So, okay, but, like, you're 27 years old now. You need to figure out how to eat things. She can't pack, like, the packing process for just a weekend is outrageous. It takes hours. Just completely dissolves. She, like, won't ask the dog sitter if she's free until it's, like, probably too late. Just so dysfunctional. Of course, another characteristic with all narcissists is the lying. There was so much. I mean, I'm sure I don't even know the half of the lies that I heard about that ex. Left out so many details and then would give me, like, a hint of the truth. But really just blatant lies all the time. Said that she was keeping her at a distance because it's not fair to her. Oh, it's the ex who wasn't over it, by the way. It's not fair to her if I talk to her, and it's not fair to you if I talk to her, was what she said in the beginning, and I was like, cool, you sound like you understand boundaries. No. So just, broke that barrier down, didn't tell me, but then I could suddenly feel that all of her energy was somewhere else, so I finally asked about it, and yeah, she'd been lying about it and hiding her texts and everything for a week. She tried to convince me that what she could do, like, I'm not ready to let go of communication with her about water polo. Really? You need to talk about that? That was so many years ago. Why is this still, like, the pillar of your friggin' life? So her idea was, we'll just email about it. Well, isn't that a nice way to keep everything from, like, now I won't even see the 10,000 texts that pop up on your phone. You'll just secretly get pages and pages of emails from her. But it's only about water polo, right? Yeah, okay. And yeah, I mean, I don't even know what else. Another huge trigger for me was the fact that she was in AA and constantly getting new phone numbers. Like, you go, and this is just part of it, apparently, you go to a meeting, and then if there's someone new to the group, you should get their phone number so that if they want to call you and have coffee or something, you can go and, like, talk about similar things. So this is a thing. It's fine. It should be fine. But of course, in the back of my mind, I was always like, you have a whole lot of not labeled phone numbers in here, and you don't tell me anything about. It was kind of this, like, don't ask. When she would say, oh, I'm going to coffee with so-and-so that I just met or not from AA. Which, again, is hugely triggering for someone who's been cheated on a bunch by a lying narcissist. And all I wanted was, like, a little bit of reassurance. And instead, of course, it got thrown right back in my face. Like, you never let me interact with anyone, or you don't want me to go anywhere, like, that kind of thing. It's like, whoa. I was just sort of asking, like, my question was, like, you never tell me about how coffee went with these people, and I get that, like, a lot of it is confidential, but, like, when I go have coffee with my friend, I usually come back and say, like, oh, this is how she's doing now, this is maybe a little of what we talked about, but you don't do that, so, like, should I be asking? And nope, that just got thrown right back in my face. Again, a lot of the ways that all of this made me feel were so similar to my overt narcissist, even though I didn't identify it because there was so much of this overt self-loathing that I couldn't figure out. But it brought so much of my anxiety back that I really had much more under control while I wasn't with anyone for like 10 months. There was a lot of shutting down for me during arguments just because the type of conflict felt very familiar. No matter what I did or said, everything was still my fault. The talking in circles. Then she would get really mad at me because in the middle of an argument, I was so shut down that I had no feelings. I just couldn't because my wall shot up. She would get mad and say that I looked like I didn't care when really this is complex PTSD, which I've told you I have, and I've given you things to read about it, and like maybe you didn't, but this is a big one. My walls shoot up because you threatened me in this very familiar way. And then those same things, for me, something similar with my narcissists is the barrages of text messages, which really amps up the anxiety because you can't possibly respond in any way, and nothing will, of course, make them stop or solve anything. And if you're the one who says, I really need to take a step back from this because this is really bringing up a lot of anxiety, then you get blamed for that too. Like, she'll just keep going. So when you finally do come back to your phone, it's a very anxiety-inducing thing because now you have 164 messages waiting for you that you really shouldn't read. Yeah, and just the lots of guilt through the text messages. I don't know what it is about that. It makes me so anxious. And then suddenly your whole day is taken up by trying to calm down the situation. So usually I would get like loads and loads of crazy text messages. Occasionally I would try to step away, but then when I would come back, it would just switch to like G-chat because now I was trying to get work done, and then it would just be like, no one's getting anything done here, and I don't know why you want to sit here and do this either. And that part actually sort of felt like someone I was with before, the other narcissist, who had a lot of very borderline personality disorder characteristics, and she would start these exact kind of text fights, especially if I was out of town or something, just to be like, pay attention to me. Like, there's no way that you could be engaging with anyone else or having any fun because this is just going to be all consuming. So that's what I've got. That's how this most recent person actually fit into all of these things, even though she sort of hid it in this weird self-loathing pity party. So it took me a while to really grasp it. But I would say, I know it's really hard to do if you also have complex PTSD like I do. I know it's really hard to trust your feelings because sometimes they're just they're not appropriately intense. They're too intense. But I would say if someone is consistently triggering you in these familiar ways, maybe try harder to think about it than I did. Like, I put it all on myself, and I was like, wow, I'm worse off than I thought. I thought I could handle a lot of things. And please don't date people who end up telling you that you're a lot. If you can open up to them about your experience with a narcissist and they are just unwilling to try to work with that or talk you through little things in a few situations, or wait the 5 minutes that you need to actually stop the argument and let you try to let your guard down again so that you can have a real conversation. People who are unwilling to do that are going to, of course, make it worse, and you don't deserve that. And there's no point. There's no point in waiting it out with people like that. So thank you again for watching. I hope that maybe some of these things make some of you think differently about maybe who you're with or who you've been with. If you have anything you want to add about covert narcissists, I would love it because I'm actually still learning, and the more right now that I learn, the better I feel about the fact that this time it was only a few months instead of 2.5 years, like the last one. Yeah, thanks for watching. Comment anything you can think of, and be well.